If you're watching the replay of this, again, just a quick reminder to skip to about the 5-minute mark. Today I'm going to be talking about what's next for Canada with this Emergency Act, and it's going to be mostly based on what's happened in other countries where these kinds of things have been deployed. So we're just going to take a look at that and talk about it, see what's going to, it's not good right now in Canada. So anyways, that is what we are going to talk about today. So I'm just going to let a couple more people join the chat before we get started. But yeah, how's it going out there, guys? Nova Scotia. Hey, Banks. I hope you're doing well out there in Nova Scotia. You guys are getting the propaganda news out there. I guess we all are. But yeah, I don't know if a lot of people from Nova Scotia are coming to the Ottawa protest. But yeah, some good times in Ottawa. But I mean, Trudeau, I'm not surprised at all that Trudeau used the Emergencies Act. I don't understand why people are shocked. We've seen the buildup in real time for at least 2 years, but potentially since 2015. So I don't understand why everybody's surprised by that. To me, I'm actually surprised it wasn't used at the start of the pandemic, to be honest. So, but yeah, we'll check it out. We'll check how bad it is. And of course, a lot of people are making videos about this. So I'm going to try not to repeat what everybody else is saying on this. We're going to try to look at it from a different angle. Yeah, Binks, you have some public protests over there too, eh? We had some in my city too. We had people protesting. I'm in the Kitchener-Waterloo area, and we had a protest about 2 weeks ago or last week. Not this past weekend, the one right before that. And we were also out there protesting both Saturday and Sunday, so it was awesome. I hope you guys have protests in your cities too. You don't have to tell me in the chat which city you're in, but I hope that you guys have some protests in your cities, because I think part of the next step in all of this is going to be the fragmentization of all these protests to keep it going, to keep the momentum going, to show that it's not just all about Ottawa. Ottawa was kind of our starting point, and we are now going to protest in all the cities everywhere we can for the next few months, or until all of this is repealed, right? So hopefully that's how it goes, but who knows, right? Yeah, it's a shocking action, but no surprise. Yeah, it is shocking that he invoked it, but I guess I'm expecting the gulag in Canada, to be quite honest. I really am. I've been mentally preparing for a gulag for years now. You guys know, you've been in the chat for a long time. So I'm just thinking we're going to get to that point soon. Oh, hey, Gun Cotton, and hello, Mechanics. So yeah, Gun Cotton, you have some in your area too. Hamilton has some big ones, yeah. Okay, sorry if you hear my heater. My heater vent fan is just below me. It is super, super loud. So my mic was indicating it was picking up that sound before. I hope it's okay now. But yes, infiltration. Yes, so there is, yeah, I think, so this is a small story I'm going to tell you before we get into the topic today. But for some weird reason, in the last 2 weeks, I have received, kind of out of the blue, like multiple attacks, and it kind of made me think, what right, what is happening? Why all in 2 weeks? So it's been emails, attacks in the video comment sections, and it's crazy. So in the same week, I was able to be called by one group a Jew hater, but at the same time, I was called a Jew lover. And people asked me, are you Jewish? Are you Jewish? Are you part of the Jewish Alliance or whatever? And I was like, how are you? Like, it's all the same. I'm saying the same stuff, and yet, you don't know. And then I've had a lot of people trying to demotivate me. So I've gotten a lot of people saying things like, why are you still trying to do this? Like, you're obviously a loser. So a lot of things like that have happened in the last 2 weeks. So one guy even said, you've been doing this for 4 years and you still only have 10K followers. I'm like, yeah. I mean, I don't advertise. I literally come on with no warning. I don't post a lot of content. So to me, 10,000 is decent. I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with having like a couple, like 25 in the chat, like right now. I'm totally chill with that. So I do believe that there is some efforts, even on the small scale level, like I'm like tiny level here, but there are some efforts to try to demotivate people to stop speaking. So when I started looking at the whole picture of all the bad comments I was getting, all focused in a period of 2 weeks until now, like I really haven't gotten a lot of really bad comments about the stuff. I haven't had a lot of personal insults, just a couple of threats when I started, but nothing since then. And all of a sudden in 2 weeks, it happened to coincidence with the protest, the freedom protest, and a lot of popularity on that they're seeming to attack anybody who wants to speak about freedom. So anyways, when I looked at the whole picture of all the attacks, I thought, wow, geez, this is really not a personal attack on me. They're just trying to get me to shut up. So I figured I'm not going to shut up. I'll come back on here and talk even more. And now I'm going to spend today comparing Trudeau to communists, to the USSR. So that's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to show you that. But yes, there's been a lot of bad stuff happening, and it's not just me. I hear from a lot of people who are also on YouTube and BitChute and all these other ones that a lot of us are getting massively attacked. And so anyways, it doesn't matter. I'm going to keep coming so long as they don't shut off the media, because that's the next step Trudeau is going to do. So I should have written that down, because I don't even have my pen here. I have everything written down here for tonight. And I just forgot that one is one that's coming. The media blackout, and by media I mean social media, meaning they're going to remove my ability to speak to you guys. So until then, I shall keep coming on here. And again, like I said to one of my trolls, commenter, whatever, I told one of them, I'm like, look, I'm not mandating you to watch my content. I'm not mandating you to come here. I didn't make it compulsory under penalty of charges and jail time that you must watch my show. Therefore, you are free to go away, and I'm fighting for your freedom to not watch my show. So anyways, yeah, there's it's been quite a week. So very demoralizing. I took a lot of personal hard hits, but then I realized, wait a second, this is not against me. This is just against me because I speak out about freedom. So, okay. I'm not going to run in the election. I am like going to be like the worst politician in the world. I would be like the most introverted, the one that goes on stage and shakes and can't find her papers. Like, that would be me. There is absolutely no way in hell that I can pull off a politician's role. I can't, just for the public speaking alone, and all the. It's just not me. It's just not my personality. I'm more of an on the ground fighter than I am an actual politician. But thank you. That's very nice. So, anyways. Okay, so shout out to D-Live crew over there. Always appreciate that you guys are also coming on D-Live to watch this. Of course, thanks to everybody really for coming every single time. If there are any moderators on here tonight, we have to do this now, and this is not something that somebody else told me to do. It's just something that I've realized that we have to do. But if you could, if somebody comes in here and is trying to target by saying things about Nazis and stuff like that, in the sense that, trying to rile you up, I normally don't want to block them, but if in these times we may have to. So anybody who is a moderator tonight, please keep that in mind. Normally I don't want to ban anybody from saying anything, but different times these next few weeks. So please feel free to just kick people off if they're starting to try to do things like rile us up to get violent or things like that. Please feel free to kick them out. Thank you. Okay. I'm too honest to be in politics. I can't lie. Thanks. Okay, so let's look at what's happening here. So I have a couple. I'm not going to make you watch the video from Trudeau where he talks about the Emergency Act. You can watch it. I would recommend that you also watch Chrystia Freeland in the back in the back. She's always like, when she's not speaking, she has her mask on. She's always looking everywhere. She's very like neurotic. And I recognize that is the body movements of a psychopath. And I promise you that is what it is. You can look it up. The only reason I know that is because my mother is actually a psychopath, no joke. And I don't talk to her. I don't have any relationship with her, but she moves like that, the same way. It's a weird. It's very hard to describe, but when you look at her, and it's not just because looking at Chrystia Freeland, I think she's a psychopath. She also spoke, which confirmed to me she was a psychopath. But her body movement, that is the body movement of a psychopath. She's unable to control herself in that moment, and it comes out in all these like jolty, weird, like cringe moments. I don't even understand like how she's up there on stage. So anyways, watch that, watch her, watch Trudeau give his speech. Absolutely abhorrent speech, and this will be evidence against him in whatever trial we're going to have in a few months, a year, a few years, hopefully, because after we are done fighting to get our freedoms back, we cannot simply go back to our day-to-day life. From that point on, we actually need to make sure this doesn't happen again, and the only way is to have a trial to put people who have done these, what I consider to be crimes against humanity, let's be honest, but we have to put them on trial. And I do believe Trudeau will end up in jail. He may be one of those people, that ends up having some kind of a deal, and he doesn't end up in jail, but he end up exiled somewhere. Remember all the Nazis that came over to America in Operation Paperclip, because the Soviets were way too afraid of them. The USA was too afraid of them going to the Soviets with all of their knowledge. So the USA kind of struck a deal with the devil in the sense that they took on all the Nazis that they knew were Nazis. They were on trial for being a Nazi. And via Operation Paperclip in the late 40s, the US government brought a lot of those Nazis to America. So I suspect something like that will happen to a lot of these leaders. They're going to be kind of Operation Paperclipped into something else. But some of them will end up in jail, and we're just going to see to that. So that's going to be the next part. After we've got our freedoms back, that's going to be the next part. Okay. So, yeah. Yeah. Some of them came to Canada. I think Operation Paperclip, they just went to the USA, but from there they could have migrated to Canada, absolutely. But I think it was a deal with the USA. So, yeah, the twitching was uncontrolled. Yeah. Okay, so what's going to be next for Canada now that we've launched this Emergencies Act? This is my opinion, obviously. I expect the government to go full drunk on power over the next few weeks. So they were already heading for that before. Now they have the freedom to do it. And unfortunately, these types of measures, what often happens is they bring out the dark side of people. So for example, in law enforcement, if you have a couple of the cops that are really like power hungry, they like to power trip on people, well, that bad violent side of them will be unleashed on the general population. So that's kind of one of the dangers. Obviously, you guys know about all of the potential they're implanting different things. I think they're going to start using force on us. I think it'll start with maybe rubber bullets, maybe the tear gas cans, and maybe some, the supersonic. What's that new weapon they've been using in New Zealand? There's a new one, and it's like a supersonic like wave that kind of messes up your brain and makes you want to leave. So I would not hold it against them. They're going to start firing against Canadian citizens based on this Emergencies Act. So we're going to see like the entire progression of what I think might happen. And all of this is based on what I know about the USSR. So similar things happened in the USSR. There were all the counter-revolutionaries that were starting to pop up, a lot of them as grassroots movements, just like the trucker movement, freedom movement in Canada. And they were squashed. They were squashed very violently in the Soviet Union. Perhaps they won't be as violent here, but there still will be a certain level of violence because now the government has basically unleashed that Emergencies Act, which allows them to do whatever they want, and it allows the psychopaths in our society in positions of power currently to now do whatever they want. We saw an example of that last week when it was the that old man being arrested. Remember the 78-year-old guy who was arrested? He was violently thrown around by the police, and there was some footage that came from other parts of the world where a lot of people are getting into clashes with the police and they're being severely injured. And there's one that it was really gross, but the guy's leg was kind of hanging at it. His tibia seemed to have been fractured, and the police are trying to carry him. No splint, nothing, just like boom, running him out of there as if it's not a problem that he's got a broken leg. And I think we're going to see some of that. I'm hoping not, but now the government is authorized and will condone the violent behavior of its agents upon the Canadian citizens who are now at the protest. So Soviets did the same thing. There's going to be some arrests. I'm sure of that. There have been already. They've already started, but there's going to be some arrests. And so here's how they did it in the USSR. There's a bunch of massive mass arrests, a few years where they did mass arrests. Of course, the USSR arrested people the whole time they were the USSR, but there were a couple mass arrests, and during those phases, so they would approach people, go whenever, like daytime, nighttime, it didn't really matter. But one of the tactics the Soviets used was to say, oh, just don't even bother getting your coat. Like, we're just going to go to the police precinct and we're going to just ask you a few questions and you'll be released like 40 minutes tops. The reality, though, so this is what they would say. Another thing the Soviet Union did, and you're going to love this because this is exactly what our Canadian government did. But they said, they would say, okay, we're just taking you and we're moving you from this area to a different area. So come with us because we're going to move you to a different area for your protection. That was the Soviets used that all the time. And the goal of saying that to people, because they knew these people were going to the gulag, they were going to be deported, they were going to be shot, whatever. The goal of saying that was that they wanted to prevent them from being scared and being agitated and try to run away. So they wanted them compliant. So they basically lied to them. Now, I expect our police, the ones who will make these arrests, to do that same thing too. Oh, we're just going to go ask you a couple of questions. And then by the time they get you to a detention center, I do believe they will keep you there for hours. So if you can, if you're part of the protest and you do get arrested for XYZ reason, I would recommend that you grab whatever you can, whatever they let you bring with you, because you don't know how long you're going to be there. And this is just based on how the Soviets did it. It wouldn't surprise me the Canadian government would instruct their people to do these similar tactics. So just to say, we're just going to ask you a couple of questions, and you end up being there for a long, long time. So those lies, sadly, in the Soviet Union worked on a lot of people for years. For years, this worked. I don't understand. I don't. By the time your government gets violent with you, at that point, to me, nothing else you say after that, I'm going to trust. There's no way I'm going to trust you. So the government can literally come and say anything now at this point, and I don't believe it. I just want them out of my life. I don't believe them. I don't care. I want them out. So, and out of my life. I don't even care. They can sit in Parliament Hill, but the politicians, I trust none of them. I think we've seen this week that Conservatives and NDP and Liberal, they're all on the same page. Conservatives are saying, oh, we oppose this Emergency Act. Okay, what are you going to do about it? Nothing. You've done nothing so far to help any of us with these crazy measures that they've been doing for 2 years. And all of a sudden, I don't believe the Conservatives either. I don't believe any of them. None of these politicians. I just hate all of them. And by hate, I mean, like, from an ideological perspective, okay? I don't mean hate that in the terms that I'm going to take action against them, okay? That is not at all what I mean. I mean, I do not want to have to deal with them. The less contact with a politician at this point, the better, the happier the Canadian citizen will be. So another thing Stalin did when he would do his arrests, he would do quotas. So he would say, go to this part and get 300 people. And the Nazis did the same thing with the how many Jews you had to kill. But the Soviets, we're going to try to stick to the Soviets. As much as I'm dying to compare this regime, the Canadian regime today, to the Nazis, because it's very similar, I decided today I'm going to focus on the communists, because they did a lot of things that were horrible, just as horrible as the Nazis, sometimes even worse. So the communists would actually do the same thing. Quotas for arrest. So we need 300 people from that village. We need 600 from over there. I would put my hand to the fire that part of this Emergencies Act, in order for Trudeau to save face now that he's unleashed this, there will be quotas for arrest. They'll need to pin this on somebody. They're going to need to show that they didn't just bring in the RCMP for no good reason, right? Because basically the Trudeau government said, hey, the provinces can't handle their own stuff. They need our help. So Emergencies Act, boop, button, button started, green button activated. So, or in this case, red button activated. So they need to arrest people. I'm almost guaranteed, I'm almost certain of that. They have to arrest people. So they will find people to arrest. So that's another thing they're going to do. Another thing that I've noticed, and this is similar to the Soviet Union again, just one second. The language change. So when the Freedom Convoy started, it was a small fringe minority. Then it was the freedom protesters. Then it was the truckers. So those were all the kind of the names associated with the protest at first. But right before the Emergencies Act was unleashed on us, they started changing the language. And that is a very powerful tool in any form of dictatorship, totalitarian government. They will change the language on you so that you can now, it becomes more serious, it becomes more urgent to deal with it, So the truckers, they became the protesters and the criminals and the terrorists. So if you look at every article now out of the mainstream media, the truckers are now referred to as one of those. They're a criminal or a terrorist. Or an unlawful protester. That's the nice version. But I've seen criminal and I've seen Nazis, I guess, would be the worst one. But that's what they did. Soviet Union did that too. So when they started arresting groups of people and sending them to the Gulag, in the Gulag, they were actually known. So whatever Gulag they were at, they were actually known by their trades. You had the lumberjacks. You had the bakers. They would call, whatever their trade was, they would group them by trade and call them that. And what happened is they changed the language later on to just say the prisoners. So that was one of the ways. By changing the language, you can now paint a group of people as bad, and you can also dehumanize them via the language. So now they are, by just saying the protesters or the unlawful protesters, it takes away kind of that humanity, where you're a trucker, that's an image of some hardworking guy, who's serious about his job, because you have to be pretty stable mentally, and you have to be how can I put this? You have to be a strong individual to be a trucker, because not only are you alone a lot of the time, but your job is you have schedules to meet, and it's a stressful environment, despite being alone in your car, in your truck most of the time. So you have to have a fortitude, like an internal fortitude. I think that's how I want to put it. That's the proper word, internal fortitude, to be that kind of person. So you take that amazing kind of trucker person, the person that brings the food to your table, the person that brings all the stuff around, that contributes to our society, that kind of nice warm feeling that you get under the word trucker. And now you've replaced it with the depersonalized unlawful protester, which basically lumps you like you're a criminal. So this is what the Soviets did. This is also what the Canadian government has done. And it's shameful, absolutely shameful that they've done this. And the Canadian government will keep using these tactics straight up out of communist USSR. I mean, obviously, when I say communist, China does the same thing. They do the same thing. North Korea, they're even brutal. They're more advanced in their crazy dictator mode. But we're like at level 100 in Canada. So North Korea is like level 1000, right? And we're getting there. We're seeing our society being in real time merging and mutating into this communist regime. And ask anybody, I'm sure a lot of you have friends that came from communist countries, ask them. I bet you they're all telling you the same thing. Yeah, we fled that, now it's here. So anyways, this is really, the language change is very alarming to me, because this is a powerful tool that tyrants will use. Okay. What else? In terms of arrests, I think they will start doing this in Ottawa, but I think it will kind of extend beyond Ottawa in the next few months, based on the severity of your posts. Like I wouldn't be surprised at all if I get arrested for the content I've been putting out, decrying the treatment of the government to its own people. Like, right? So I think it'll start in Ottawa and it'll slowly spread out. And this is what we can expect over the next few months. We can, it'll be the knock on the door, and it could be at any time. And I'll show you an article, and let me show you this article right now, actually, because I think it ties right into what I was going to talk about in terms of the arrest, because I wanted to show you something. This article is actually, it just came out 20 minutes before I started the stream, and I quickly glanced at it, and it happened to have a lot of the tactics that I'm showing you today embedded in here. So another one in here is the children, right? They're talking, so see here, Children's Society warns parents of potential police action. So essentially, under this Emergencies Act, they are now threatening parents that their children will be taken away, and if they bring them to the protest. So we'll check out the article, and I'll keep going on the parallel to this Soviet tactic here. But Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino warned Wednesday that those joining the convoy protest risk being connected to dangerous criminal activity. This straight up out of the communist USSR style book. They called them counter-revolutionaries in USSR. This is the Canadian version of the counter-revolutionary. They call it dangerous criminal. So this is what we're dealing with here. So they did the Emergencies Act for the first time since its passage. The move gives government new powers to address anti-vaccine mandate protesters tying the city in knots, including authority to ban travel to protest zones. So it's funny because Trudeau said that he will make sure to respect the Charter of Freedom, but which allows peaceful protest, peaceful gathering, but under the Emergencies Act, they claim to have the authority to ban travel to protest zones. That's not okay. That's against the law. So Trudeau and his bullies would effectively be breaking the law, breaking our Canadian law, if they were to ban people to travel to a protest zone and prohibit people from bringing minors to unlawful assemblies. So they're painting in here, using language again, which we just talked about. They're painting the most peaceful protest probably in the history of the world. Like, I'm pretty sure that Canadian truckers and all of their supporters have pulled off the record for the most peaceful protest, the longest peaceful protest in the world, and the most peaceful protest in the world. Maybe some monks somewhere have done something more peaceful. Maybe what's the name of that nun there? Mother Teresa. Maybe she did something like that. But like, at least top 3. Canadians have got to be in the top 3 for the most peaceful protest in the history of the world. And yet, our government has managed to say unlawful assembly in the same sentence to try to make your brain connect protest with unlawful assembly. This is what they're doing in this article. This is huge propaganda right here. This is a propaganda, fear tactic, and also trying to threaten you. They're threatening you in here. So police began handing out notices to protesters still entrenched in the downtown, warning that they must leave the area now. Let's read that. I have that. I'm going to tell you what they handed out. It was written by a second grader. It's weird that the sentences are very strange to me in here. But this is I don't have a good picture of it. Let me see if I can get you to see it. If I put it right in front of the camera, do you recognize this? Sorry, my halo light right there. But here, the auto. So this was, you've seen it. I'm sure you've seen it on Telegram, BitChute, all of the videos. You'll see truckers being approached by police, and they're trying to hand them a piece of paper. That was today, so it's February 16th. This is the paper that they handed out. I'm going to read it to you. You must leave the area now. Anyone blocking streets or assisting others in blocking streets are committing a criminal offense, and you may be arrested. I wonder where those flyers were when they were setting fire to car trains and blocking trains. Where was that? That was 2 years ago? There's none of those. But anyways, you must immediately cease further unlawful activity or you will face charges. It's like it's so USSR in the way they're talking to Canadian citizens in here. This is nothing short of what Stalin would have done. This he would have done. If you are arrested, you may be released on bail depending on factors contained in part 16 of the Criminal Code. You may be released on bail. Basically, they have the authority. They can do whatever they want. They can release you on bail. They cannot release. It's however they feel in the moment. This Emergencies Act. We feel we're going to release you on bail. we like the color of your eyes today. We're in a good mood and we had enough coffee, so we're going to release you on bail. It's like this is unlawful. Like they're talking to protesters who are having a peaceful protest about unlawfulness while putting unlawfulness on them. But the message here is the unlawfulness is only allowed to come from the government. Okay, the people of Ottawa are being denied the lawful use, enjoyment, and operation of their property, and you are causing businesses to close. That is mischief under the Criminal Code. Charges and or convictions related to unlawful activity associated with the demonstration may lead to denial in crossing the USA border. What's really strange about that is if you're an unvaccinated trucker, you actually can't. Okay, the Federal Emergencies Act allows for the regulation or prohibition of travel to, from, or within any specified area. This means that anyone coming to Ottawa for the purpose of joining the ongoing demonstration is breaking the law. So anyone coming to Ottawa to join a peaceful protest is breaking the law. But that's what they say here, but it's not. And there are lawyers on Telegram who are coming out saying, if you're doing a peaceful protest, that is protected under the Charter of Freedom and Rights, and you are allowed to go. They cannot stop you from going. So the Ottawa Police, in their note here, is conflating the two elements, the unlawful part of an assembly with the peaceful part, and they're making it as if it's the same grouping, and they're treating it as unlawful. So it's a scare tactic again. Okay, the Act also provides police with a number of measures, including the ability to seize vehicles that are part of this demonstration. So again, seizing private property, so you can take police now can take your car, the bank can take your money. And they're saying we're unlawful for protesting. Okay. Ontario law now prohibits interference with any critical infrastructure, including 400 series highways, railways, airports, and international border crossing. It prohibits you from preventing someone from traveling to or from walkways, bridges, and highways, or preventing anyone from using them. It also prohibits someone from seriously interfering with the safety, health, or well-being of members of the public. Anyone who commits these illegal actions could face fine or be required to appear in court. Commercial vehicles, driver's licenses, and private driver's licenses can be suspended or revoked. And then there is this stamp of the police. And so that was the brochure, the pamphlet that was distributed to the truckers in Ottawa today. So back to the article here. when they handed out these notices, they're basically telling people they have to leave. And I just want to skip to the part about the kids. To those who may be thinking to come to Ottawa this weekend, don't. So there's no grounds to prevent people from traveling to Ottawa. I mean, they're already preventing the unvaccinated from leaving the country. So I guess this is following right alongside of that, right? At best, the residents of the city have made it clear that this is not the time. And at worst, you may be tying yourself to dangerous criminal activity. So again, here's that criminal activity we're talking about, and conflating the peacefulness with the criminal to attempt to make basically they're saying, if you come, you're going to be a criminal. The Children's Aid Society of Ottawa put out a statement on Wednesday urging parents at the demonstration to make alternate care arrangement should they become unable to care for their children following potential police action. Unbelievable that we're reading this. When I was reading about the gulags, I can't remember which book it's from, but I remember this passage very clearly. There was in the USSR, there was part of the mass arrest, this mother, and I think she had done nothing wrong, but she was tied to a group of counter-revolutionaries, and she had left her baby in her apartment to go outside to hang something on the clothesline. While she's hanging her linens on the clothesline, the NKVD, the secret police from the USSR, showed up and arrested her there. They didn't allow her to take anything with her, but she said, my baby's inside. Can I at least go and try to give him to the neighbor or something? Nope, they didn't. They let the baby be alone inside, take the mother away like that. We're getting there. We're not quite at the USSR level yet, but these kinds of sentences in these articles, should they become unable to care for their children? So basically saying, we're going to arrest some of you. Back to the quote as I was mentioning earlier. We're going to arrest some of you. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Hold on, guys. So we're going to arrest some of you. So you better make arrangements because you're going to be in jail for a while. And again, this ties back to, if they arrest you, you could be there for a number of days. You have no idea. Again, it's based on their whim at this point. There is no official structure. There's no due process anymore. They could just literally do whatever they want. They can arrest you and put you in a room alone for 5 days if they want. So now they're saying, you have to make arrangements for your kid if you're coming to this protest. So they have a mandate to protect a child when their parent becomes unavailable to exercise their custodial rights over the child, and the parent has not made adequate provision for the child's care and custody. So they're threatening to put your children away in foster care if you don't make arrangements for them. Just sickening, really. If a parent and children are separated following police efforts in ending the demonstration in the downtown core, CASO will work to reunite families as soon as possible. Yeah, right. I'm sure you will. You have no problem separating the parent and the child. So by arresting the parent, and then you're threatening them, saying your child will go in foster care if you haven't made arrangements. Oh, but look, they'll reunite you as soon as possible. Oh, isn't that nice? Such good work here from CASO. Sickening, really. Sickening. The new measures come into effect Monday and prohibit public assemblies that disrupt the movement of people, goods, and trade, or support the threat or use of acts of serious violence against persons or property. So there has been no serious violence against persons or property yet. They're hoping there will be some because they need to make those arrests to meet the quotas, right? So if you imagine this, imagine the optics. If Trudeau used the Emergency Act and nobody gets arrested and everything goes down smoothly and there are no problems, it will tarnish Trudeau probably forever, because he needs to show that he didn't waste the Emergency Act. He didn't sound the alarm bell, like the guy who cried wolf. I think Trudeau's kind of in that boat now, and he's realizing it. And if he cries wolf another time, nobody will take him seriously. So he cannot cry wolf again. He has to make this one count. And I think part of that strategy will be definitely do everything he can to make sure that the protest and the criminal unlawful activity, as he says, in his mind, it translates into a reality. So he's going to do like Stalin tactics to just put disturbers in the crowd. Like there was the planting the guns. That was one of the things they were worried about, and all sorts of stuff like that. They're going to put drugs there. Like they're going to do all, you won't believe the stuff Trudeau's about to do. And it's because he has to have these arrests. If there are no arrests, bringing in the RCMP, all of that would have been useless. And he will be immediately kicked out of his party and demoted as the prime minister. Maybe that's the strategy, actually. You know what, guys? Maybe that is the strategy. Maybe he will do that. Nothing will happen and he'll get demoted, and then Chrystia Freeland will take over. That could be also part of the strategy. It wouldn't surprise me. And she is far worse than Trudeau, by the way. We do not. Swapping Trudeau with Freeland, who ironically is called Freeland, but swapping those two, it gets us nowhere. We can't have the ideology that they represent being at the head of our country. They are communists. The new brand of communism now, it's not the USSR brand anymore. It's a new one. It's called globalism. These guys are globalists. They are part of that elite class. They want to enslave you, and they want you to do as they say. There is no more, hey, like we're here to govern but not to dictate. They want to dictate. So that's the big change. And a lot of people don't necessarily realize that, especially if you read the mainstream media. You don't realize that all of these political heads, they don't work for Canada anymore. They work for the global agenda. Okay. The Ottawa Police notice spells it out, saying Emergencies Act follows the regulations or prohibition to travel to, from, or within any specified area. So that's what we just read. Now, here are the other temporary measures. Temporary. I love the word temporary. They've used it so often that now we know temporary means permanent. And it means not only are these measures permanent, but we're also going to make even more measures that will be permanent after that too. So whenever they say these temporary measures, this is a calculated set of words to try to convince you that it won't be for long. And I think a lot of Canadians are falling for it. But again, just remind yourself of the 2 weeks to flatten the curve. That was 2 weeks. That became 2 years. Those were also temporary measures, right? So the vaccine passport was supposed to be, it was portrayed to us as a temporary measure, but the way it was adopted, it was a permanent one. So we're fighting to get that out. So, okay, these are the other measures. Fines amounting to thousands of dollars or jail time for those bringing children under the age of 18 to participate in an unlawful assembly. Same penalties for anyone who participates in blockades or brings aid, such as food or fuel to people involved. This is a Nazi strategy, by the way. The prevent food or aid, food or fuel to people involved. I did a video on BitChute. You guys can go check it out. It's like a 3-minute video about the Ottawa Police last week when they said that they're going to prevent people from bringing food to the truckers. Last week, they were still calling them truckers, by the way. Now they're illegal protesters, criminals. But anybody who brought food or fuel to the truckers would be arrested or could have a fine. So when the Nazis were putting Jews on trains to send them to Auschwitz, whatever, insert concentration camp name here, the German population was prohibited from assisting Jewish people. So you couldn't hand them water, you couldn't give them anything at all, you couldn't help them with their luggage, nothing. You could do nothing. If you were caught helping the Jews get on the trains, and this is a bit later on, so like 1943, if you were caught doing that, you were shot. So we're using a combination of Nazi, a combination of communist strategies to bring all of this. The government is doing this to us. We should all be alarmed, by the way. Like, this is absolutely atrocious, the way the government is treating the citizens now. And even if you're unaffected now, you're like, I'm not a trucker, I'm vaccinated, and I still have my job. the reason you should be alarmed by all of this is because eventually they will come for you as well. So you might be okay now. Right now, I'm telling you guys, it's so much easier to fight now. If we allow this to continue and you think you're safe, you won't be. I would like to remind you that Stalin in the, when did he do this? It was in the 40s, I believe. He did the purge. He went after, and the purge was after his own Communist Party members who he thought they were either spies, infiltrators, not communist enough, didn't like them that day, didn't matter, but he went after his own people. So if you think you're safe now, you think, you know what, I'm okay, I got the jab, I'm not a trucker, I'm not affected by this, I need these convoys need to go home because Ottawa needs to get back to normal. Just keep in mind that if this doesn't stop, if we don't push back against our tyrannical government right now, they will eventually come for you, and you will at that point regret not joining the freedom movement. Anybody who says the freedom movement is a problem, I can't understand it. And basically the way it is now in Canada, there's only two different sides you can be on, and that's it. That you can no longer be in the middle, kind of like waiting it out. You're either on the side of freedom and you want freedom and you want the government to back down, and you want the government to be put on trial for the crimes they've committed during the pandemic, using the pandemic as an excuse, or you're on the side of the people who want mandates. You want the government to forcefully inject you with whatever it is that the government decides is good for you. You want the government to take away your jobs. You want the government to come in and dictate your day-to-day. Those are pretty much how Trudeau's managed to separate Canadians, which were unified before. This is what we have now. And a lot of us are trying to get as many people come onto the side of freedom as we possibly can. So this is the time to join it. Okay, another thing that they're going to do is they're going to start attacking the human side of it. So during the first phase of the protests, we saw a lot of camaraderie between the protesters and the police. And the police were just kind of there to maintain order. They realized our job is easy on this one. And they had a lot of sympathy for the protesters and all that. And I think that with the Emergencies Act, Trudeau is going to try to break up that humanity. That can no longer happen for his will to be successful, for his plans to be successful. So he's going to start, that's why the language is changing. It's also the dehumanization of the protesters, the truckers, and it's in order for them that when they're arrested, it is easier for the police to not have contact with them in a human way. So they're going to start to process them like numbers and all that. So I think that they're going to try to make that happen as soon as possible with this Emergencies Act by saying just go in and arrest people and bring them fast, and no chatting with them. They probably have been briefed on this, on how to properly dehumanize the person you're arresting in this context, right? So I hope the police won't fall for that. I really am still hopeful. There's a lot of good guys left on the police force. And I hope that they join us, the freedom rank, and not the support the government and all their crazy measures rank. So anyways, so humanity is one. Now something else is, and by the way, the USSR, before I finish off on that humanity portion, the US in the early days of the Gulag, so the very first Gulag, so from 1917, like the disorganized Gulags, if you want, up to the late 20s, there's a lot of reports in the archives of kind of almost like a camaraderie between the guards, the KGB that was there on site at the Gulag, and the actual prisoners. And it wasn't completely like, what you would see in movies, like where the prisoners are being beaten down as they walk through, by the guards who are all super savage and all that. It was a little, there are some archives that state that camaraderie was there. However, in the later part of the Gulag, they didn't want that anymore. And so the prisoners were saying that, especially the ones like at places like the Lubyanka, which is where Solzhenitsyn was taken when he was arrested, they would there's reports of the women going through the processing when they undress them, humiliation and everything after your arrest. And they would say that you couldn't find anybody to look in the eye. They would all look away because all the guards, the processing people, the photographer that would take your picture when you sat down and you did the profile thing, the guy who would take your fingerprints, none of them would look at you. And that was an active strategy. They were briefed to not look at the prisoners so that there would be no humanity between the two. The prisoners just became an entity, like this dehumanized entity that you just need to process. Your job is to process them. So I'm hoping, but I'm not very, my hopes aren't, like, I'm hoping, but it's slowly going away every day that I see more and more things happening. I'm hoping that the Ottawa police, the RCMP that was brought in, that whatever paramilitary group is going to be brought in, that they still have some humanity left in them and they won't go down the Soviet route of dehumanizing the protesters all the time. Okay, another thing that is very alarming in the Emergencies Act is how Trudeau is compelling people to work. So part of the Emergencies Act, he can literally come to anybody's house and say, you need to go work and do this. This is very scary because it could be, you could be sitting at home and you're being brought in to process prisoners, for example, process the protesters, and they're going to use it to get the trucks out of the way with the tow truck companies. They're going to use that, but they're going to use it for something else, for a lot of other things as well. And you're going to be forced to work against your will and under threat and penalty of a fine or jail time if you don't work for the government. So that should be alarming to everybody because that is straight up USSR. And the really ironic part is Trudeau has managed to create in Canada a class of people that he's compelling to work, whether they want to or not, while at the same time making sure a certain group of people don't work, even if they want to work. So think back to the long-term care providers, the nurses, the doctors, anybody who did not want to take the jab, all got fired. And it's probably even beyond that. Like there's probably more private sector entities that have fired their people for not being vaxxed. So while you're firing competent people who are hardworking, you're also compelling other groups of people to work for you. The level of insanity we've reached in Canada is just scary at this point. And really, we really have to keep the freedom movement alive because we cannot live in a society like this where the government can literally tell you, you can work, you can't work, you must work here and do this for me. The Soviets assigned jobs to people. In the Soviet Union, you didn't have the freedom to grow up and be like, I would like to be a poet when I grow up. The local committees of Soviet leaders would come into wherever you live, and they would decide, okay, when you're out of school, the indoctrination camps that the kids went to, called schools, you get out of there, you're going to go work at this factory. You over there, you're going to go and work in this collective farm over here. You guys are going to make industrialized steel. This is what the communists do. They assign jobs to people. So when you see Trudeau turn around and say, we are going to compel people to work against their will, and it starts with these people who are going to remove the truckers, it can become far worse because they can come and now start saying to people, you now must work for this. It's part of the effort, It's, if it were wartime, it'd be like, it's this wartime effort, but because it's not a war, they can still do it. They have the Emergencies Act. They can compel you to work and give up your house, whatever they need. They can come here and say, your house is now a processing place for all of the counter-revolutionaries we're going to arrest to meet our quotas, so that the Emergency Act looks like it was unleashed for some valid reason, right? So they could do that. They could literally do that, and there's nothing you can do about it. Okay. A ban on foreign nationals entering Canada to participate or facilitate an illegal assembly. Authorization for RCMP to enforce municipal and provincial laws. Authorization for banks and insurance company to freeze participants' account. So, and cancel their vehicle insurance. So, again, if you're pro mandate. You're on the government side on this one. I just want to reinforce how these kinds of measures taken against a peaceful protest are alarming at best, but downright evil and disgusting. You can lose your car. They can seize your car, your driver's license, and then they can also cancel your car insurance. You're paying for it, but they can cancel it now. They can then freeze your bank account so you can't pay your mortgage. So you might think, you know what, I'm okay because I'm with Trudeau on this. Okay, let this continue and fast forward in a few years. What happens when Trudeau comes for you? Because you know what? Your sister-in-law spoke out about something. She said something that the new Trudeau regime didn't like, and he's arresting every member of the family. Then you are going to be swept up, even though you're on his side today. Once these regimes become an official part of a society, of a country, everybody suffers. So you think you're okay now, but I want to stress out that in history, it has never been good for people who sided with the tyrants. Even the people who are like in this inner circle of the tyrants eventually get their day, and they get, in the old days they used to cut their head off. Today they're probably going to put you against the shooting wall. They might even put in, what are those medical facilities the USSR used to use? If you said something, if you were an intellectual in the USSR and you would say something that the regime didn't like, they would put you in like this mental facility. I can't remember the name now. There's a special name for that. They would put you there because they would declare you insane. They're saying, I don't like what he's saying, so he's therefore insane, because only insane people would not like Stalin. And that's where they would just be locked up in a psychiatric unit for the rest of their life. So you may think you're okay now, but I promise you, if Trudeau keeps going down the globalist path that he's trying to take Canada on, it will get ugly for all of us. And the protesters now, the truckers, and everybody who's part of the freedom movement, we are trying to save everybody from that. Not just the people who love the freedom right now. We're also trying to save you guys who are on the other side, who still think Trudeau is okay. We're trying to do this for all of you. So, okay. So that's it for that article. But and then compelling to work. I think I had a couple more notes here that I'm going to share. So another thing Stalin did, he did Article 58 in the Soviet Code. So that's a little bit like the Emergencies Act. But basically, he wanted to sanction harshly people who were part of counter-revolutionary movement. And USSR, Stalin, he was like really afraid of any grassroots movement. So I think Trudeau's in the same boat today. He is looking at the freedom movement and he's saying, oh my gosh, this has gone worldwide. Now we are in a position where I have to act forcefully. So what can I do? Emergencies Act. And this is very similar to that Article 58 the Soviets used. So they added that to the penal code. And basically you could bring down harsh sentences on anybody. So they would still say, we're putting you on trial. We're still democratic over here in the USSR. You still get a trial. But anything at all you said, or anything your family's members would have said, you could be accused of being a counter-revolutionary for literally anything at all, be put on some kind of a show trial, and then under Article 58, you could be sentenced just for that. So it's the same kind of thing. One thing that was really interesting in about the Article 58 of the Soviet Union was that the courts were directed to judge to sentence not based on like how the crime was committed or the severity of the crime, but how they were supposed to sentence people on how dangerous they were perceived to be or actually be to the USSR Soviet regime, right? So it wasn't the crime you committed, it was, are you a danger to Stalin? And that was how they would sentence people under Article 58. So I'm seeing a little bit of that with the Emergencies Act that they've unleashed. The Emergencies Act itself doesn't say that, but the powers that it grants to the police, to the insurance companies, to the banks, to arrest, to block your money, to take your insurance away. These are all things that are they're sanctions that are designed to harshly punish you if you speak out against Trudeau's regime today. So that they're very similar to what they're doing. And lastly, the propaganda and the media. So the media, all on Trudeau's side right now, and they're putting, we just saw an article, you'll see a lot of these articles are now, all of them in the mainstream media, are all threatening you, talking to you. If you bring your kids, we're going to put you in jail and you're going to have to make arrangements for your kid. Conflating the peaceful movement of freedom with the violent, unlawful criminals. All of them are doing it now. So that's the propaganda side of everything. So if you only read the CBC, you think there's horrible things going on in Ottawa. Like if that's the only thing you're exposed to, you think, oh my God, like the Ottawa people are burning everything. Like you think it's like the BLM movement, right? But the reality is it's not that at all. It's like the reverse. It's the inverse. I think I've heard people start talking about the inverse. So the media is saying the exact opposite of what's actually happening on the ground in Ottawa. And I would encourage anybody who is, I don't think anybody would be listening to my stream that is not red-pilled yet, but if I happen to even have one or two people that are just listening to CBC or CTV, just maybe look at alternative media so that you look for people who have gone to Ottawa and ask them how it was, because the media is lying to you. They've been lying to you for years, and now the lies are level 100 now. They've like just expanded the lies, and it's all to protect Trudeau. Trudeau's bought all of them off. He's admitted to it, and now they're producing everything to cover for him. And they're going along with his narrative of these protesters are all criminal Nazis, and we cannot have it. We need the Emergencies Act on this. So it's sad, but the way we are in Canada today is we've reached a level where to speak of freedom in Canada, to even fly the Canadian flag, which is something we've been doing for years, but in this day and age, right now, to do those things, to be pro-freedom, makes you, according to Trudeau, a criminal. And then he has the audacity to talk about freedom, about Canadians have freedom, we're a free people. Our deputy prime minister, her name is literally Free Land. And yet Canada is one of the most tyrannical regimes that we have on the planet right now. I'm telling you guys, as an insider of Canada, and I'm sure a lot of you would agree, I'm part of the second-class citizen of Canada now. I used to be just a Canadian citizen. Now I'm downgraded to be outcasted member of society simply because I refuse to be injected by something the government is telling me I have to do. So that alone is putting me in the criminal zone with all of the freedom protesters, just not wanting to be injected by something the government says you should take is now putting you in a criminal. You're now a criminal. You can't work. You're outcast from society. Canada, it's really bad in Canada now. Really, really bad. And these measures should be stopped. I hope they will be. I think they still have to vote on it. They have a week to vote on it. I hope they will stop this Emergencies Act. But again, if we lose this moment now, I have very bleak outlook for Canada. If we lose this, I'm going to start making videos on how to survive in the gulag. I'm going to give you tips how to survive, because you're going to have to fight all sorts of people in the Canadian gulag. There's going to be the other prisoners, the right, that are going to come after you. There's going to be all sorts of in-wars. You're going to have to find a way to survive. So I'm going to start making tips on how to survive the gulag if you get sent out there in Northwest Territories. I don't know where the Canadian gulag is going to be. Probably a bunch of them, but yeah, it's going to get ugly if we don't win this one. So yeah, we have to push back. This is our opportunity. We have great momentum, and now the media is trying to scare you into not going to protests. They're trying to threaten you with fines and jail sentences. But I've seen a lot of reports on Telegram coming from the truckers in Ottawa saying we're not moving, we're here to until they remove the mandates. And there's a lot of lawyers who are starting to speak out now saying this is unlawful what the Canadian government is doing, and they cannot arrest you for simply attending a protest. So I encourage everybody to look at every side of every story and when you make your decisions on that. But right now, Canada is in a very dangerous place, and we need to get ourselves out of it. And it's not going to be the politicians that are going to get us out. It's going to be us. So on that, I will let you guys go. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I hope you have a really good week. We'll catch up next week. Maybe I'll do a weekend stream again this weekend if I can. But yeah, we're going to keep fighting for freedom. It's the only way we can win this. And I think we will win in the end. So I won't make gulag videos. But yeah, have a really good week, guys. And I'll speak to everybody next.